When we think about writing clean code, we often think of code that is written with purpose, where each line is perfectly thought out, code that was planned out before it was written, so well planned that the first time we run it, it just works. No errors, no flaws, first go. But why is it that for most of us when we write code, it is far from this ideal? A lot of times writing code can feel like being in an intense battle with your machine. No matter what you do, the errors just keep coming. To make matters worse, the error messages are unspecific, which means that when you Google them, you get nowhere. Your frustration just keeps rising, and the bug that you thought would be a quick 5-minute fix right before lunch is now running on hour 4, and you have no intention of eating before you solve this. You've now resolved to using print statements as your debug method of choice. Nice. I think that the perception that we have of what clean code is and how it's written is kind of flawed. And I think that that perception is something that can scare off a lot of beginners, that is the standard that their code is meant to be held to, when the reality of programming is often far more messy, where you pretty much write a line of code and all of a sudden an error occurs in the old part of the code base that someone really should take a look at and refactor, but you're under a time constraint, so you don't have the time to actually do that, so you just write a quick fix, and all of a sudden that tiny feature that you were going to implement has become a complete mess. That's usually how it works, unless you're working on a project where you've done all of it before, where you know exactly what to write next and where it should go, which is sometimes the case if you've worked somewhere for ages doing the same thing. But if you're doing anything that's new to you or that you haven't done 1,000 times before, then the story is a lot different. And there may be code reviewers and design documents and whatever else that's created to help you write clean code. Cal, you did write the test for that piece of code before you shipped it, right? You're not lying to me, right? So if we take a look at your code, the unit test will be there then? Yeah, no, exactly. So you did write the test? Maybe I think maybe you should talk to Joe because he's new. I think maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe. All right, should we talk to Joe because I can call him over if you want. Come on, Joe.
No. Wait,
I think
stop.
Cal has something that he wants to
I
talk
don't
to
think
you
you should
about.
because I don't think it's a good idea. Maybe I should. I'm not feeling too good. Maybe I should go home because I don't know if you can. I might have the flu.
But at the end of the day, in most software engineering jobs, things aren't as well organized as you would expect. Mostly the code that you write on a day-to-day basis is subject to a lot of outside factors like time constraints, old code bases that aren't maintained, other people's bad practices, etc. So the expectation that you're going to be able to write a piece of code that works perfectly and is purposeful every single time, or even just most of the time, is far from what writing code actually looks like. You should still, of course, aspire to do all those things, but in most companies, it's not only your job to write a clean piece of code, it's actually you and your code reviewer's job to produce a clean piece of code. There's also a trade-off between writing clean code and being efficient. Thinking that every piece of code that you write has to be perfection itself is neither realistic nor what anyone expects from you. I would say that in general, trying to write perfect code is super inefficient, because in order to do that, you need to spend so much time thinking through everything that you do that you become very slow. The way that you should usually work or think about your work is write, refactor, and review. You first focus on writing the code and making it run without errors. Then, after you've got that, you can spend some time refactoring the code you've written, renaming variables, methods, simplifying methods, adding comments, etc. It's easier to refactor existing code than it is to write it like that from the beginning. And then finally, once you've spent a bit of time refactoring and essentially cleaning up your code, you can send it in for code review. After it's been reviewed, I would say that you have successfully written a pretty solid piece of code, while also maintaining a reasonable level of efficiency. What I'm mostly trying to say is that the perception that we have that clean code is equal to perfect code is usually far from true, and that's why big companies have practices like code review, because the first implementation of something is usually far from perfect, and it's just there to kind of get it to work. And then that piece of code can be worked on and refactored. You can remove all of the print statements that you added in to find out where the error occurs. And you can rename and refactor different methods. And then once you've worked on that for a while, you can send it in for code review, and then the code reviewer can check out your code and your mess and give you some advice and tips for how to refactor it further and make it even cleaner. And then once all of that is done, that's when I would say you have a clean piece of code. This video is sponsored by NordLocker. NordLocker is an easy to use file encryption tool. This is something that you can use if you want to store files with sensitive data somewhere. For instance, if you want to upload financial records to Google Drive, you can then use NordLocker to encrypt the file before you upload it. That way no one can see the contents of your file except you. You simply drag the files that you want to encrypt into your NordLocker folder and you're done. And this works on both Mac and Windows, so it really is super simple, and it also features super fast encryption times. By using NordLocker, you can keep your files safe from unwanted eyes anywhere you want to. It also supports multiple devices, and they of course offer 24/7 technical support because it's 2020. So I definitely recommend getting NordLocker. Go to nordlocker.net/Holden and use the coupon code Holden to get NordLocker for free and to also get a 32% discount on the premium version. Even though it may be inefficient to write clean code from the start, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. So the fact that our perception of clean code being equal to perfect code and the fact that writing clean code is inefficient is not an excuse for writing shitty code. The aim should of course be to write the best code you can at the time, but if you end up spending several minutes thinking of what the most appropriate variable name is, then I think it's a good idea to move on. Basically, as you write, you often know a fast and a sloppy way of doing something and the slower but more proper way of doing it. This is when you should opt for the slower, more proper way. Instead of writing 3 nested for loops, it may be worth spending a couple minutes trying to figure out if you could come up with or Google a recursive function that could remove some of the for loops. I do think that most of us know when we're being sloppy and just can't be bothered doing things the right way, even though we know how to do it the right way. And that's when I would suggest spending that extra amount of time doing it the right way from the start. But on the other hand, let's say that we're implementing a new feature. Usually there's like an infinite amount of ways to implement new features. And that's when I would say that it doesn't make sense to spend several hours trying to research the most optimal way of implementing that feature. Instead, I would suggest just implementing the feature in the best way that you can, and then spending some time refactoring that and making your implementation a lot more elegant, because then at least you've made something that works. A trendy term right now is action bias, which means that you're biased towards taking action over inaction. And I think that that is how you should be thinking when you're creating clean code. You should write clean code with an action bias, meaning that you can spend time researching things and trying to do it better, but you're biased towards taking action. If you keep that in mind as you write code, then I think you'll be well off. So writing clean code in the way that we perceive clean code is a myth. Usually clean code is the product of several people working on a project together and not just one individual. So if you're feeling like I believe a lot of people are feeling like a crappy programmer because your code usually looks like a giant mess, then you're not alone. And especially if you haven't worked at a company before writing software professionally where they have the right systems in place for it, I would say that for most of us, our own personal projects are super messy, and they're kind of like the closet that we have where we just shove all our shit into and try to shut it and hope that no one looks in there. I'm gonna get to that, I promise. That's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. And before you go, I just want to mention that I've created something called Clean Code Friday, which is very fitting with this video, which is a short email that I send out once every week, so every Friday, that contains a few of the most interesting things that I found throughout that week. And that'll be things like books I'm reading, articles I've read, productivity tips, coding tips and tricks, and really just anything that I think you might enjoy. So if that sounds interesting to you, then you can go to caltech.com/clean code, or you can sign up using the link in the description. That's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.
But then I was worried because I'm like, oh my God, I'm like so unproductive, and I'm wallowing in this like guilt. I was raised Catholic, so like this Catholic guilt of like not, I'm not working hard enough. This company's not successful enough. All my and it's like totally not helpful. And so I'm like, oh my God, am I broken? Like, am I not capable of working hard? What's wrong with me? But then I would one good news, I started working on this like poker bot. That started and it played with real money. Like I got past the security on the poker client. This is 2006, so I figured out how to like make all that work, and then watch kind of my Frankenstein moment as the bot comes to life and starts playing on real poker tables. And so this idea that you can't have poker bots was like totally false. But I was possessed. It was like,
were you winning? Was Frankenstein's monster winning?
Well, I mean, Frankenstein was like not too smart in the beginning. So like, there's some the thing starts moving the mouse and playing the hand, then gets confused because there's some like obscure multiple split pot or something that I just didn't write the code to handle that situation. So the thing crashes and folds your aces, and you're like, okay, awesome. This is what AI looks like.